I would argue that immigration reform must go beyond enforcement. And what we need is something that will comprehensively approach the problems and the consequences of having not changed our laws over the last 10, 15 years.
This is At Brookings, a weekly in-depth look at the issues behind the news. This week, immigration reform.
Comprehensive immigration reform is a hot topic. Arizona has enacted the toughest state law now on the books, resulting in both praise and condemnation from lawmakers and the public. Metropolitan Policy Program's Senior Fellow Audrey Singer says the need for comprehensive national reform is apparent and the time is ripe to take action.
We've been talking a lot about enforcement, particularly border security and border enforcement. But comprehensive reform has to go a lot further than that in order for things to work in a way where we are actually managing immigration flows as opposed to just building barriers and trying to keep people out. So a more comprehensive approach would include, of course, continuation of what we're doing in terms of border security, but also an internal or a worksite type of enforcement, and there are proposals out there that talk about different ways of doing this. We also have to manage flows that are going to be continuing in the future. And so looking at how we admit people either on a permanent basis or as temporary workers is also an important component. In addition, we have to deal with the large group of immigrants who are living here without status. The only way to do this is to have a fair legalization program where immigrants get in the back of the line, pay a fine, go through a security check, and then proceed along a pathway towards permanent residency and eventually citizenship.
Audrey, President Obama has comprehensive immigration legislation reform at the top of his to-do list, and recent polls show that many Americans want to see something done about immigration as well. Why is this all happening now?
The Arizona law really cracked the issue of immigration wide open for a lot of people in America, not just people living in Arizona. And what happened there was sort of emblematic of what's happening across the country. There's a lot of anxiety over what's happening to this country economically, in terms of the housing crisis that we've had. And Arizona has seen that more than its fair share there. And I think when people feel anxious about their economic status, unemployment is high, they do look around and look for someone to blame. And in the case of Arizona, it came down to illegal immigrants.
This is a very emotional issue. It's a highly politicized issue. Is there any way we can take the politics out of it and do what needs to be done?
There is mounting political pressure coming from all sides to reform U.S. immigration law. Part of that comes from those who would like stronger enforcement, and those efforts are being seen across the country, even in places with low levels of immigration. But on the other side, there's a lot of pressure from immigrant advocacy organizations who also realize that the time is ripe and who need to see changes across the board: enforcement, legalization, admissions, integration issues. These groups are also putting pressure on Congress and on the President, and they would like to see action very soon. If they don't, they are going to be very disappointed because, in particular, the Latino vote was very important in terms of getting Obama elected.
What happens if we don't move forward with some kind of comprehensive legislation?
One danger with the Arizona law, which was recently passed, which is a very strict enforcement program with law enforcement in that state alone, is that it has the potential to offer a model for other states to take this kind of policy up. And several proposals are out there in Pennsylvania and in other places. And what that means is we will have a hodgepodge of enforcement if these laws go into effect.
Audrey, there are varying opinions about the legislation that just passed in Arizona, but it certainly seems to have put the dialogue about immigration and immigration reform on the front burner.
To be fair, Arizona has had some very violent and very high-profile incidents along the border, and that has driven a lot of the sentiment there. But the fact that it has gone widespread to areas far from the border means that it is time that we do something, change our laws, get Congress moving on this so that we can quell the anxiety and make our system work better and manage immigration to the fullest extent that we can.
Audrey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Gigi.
And thank you for joining us today. I'm Gigi Hinton.
At Brookings is produced by the Brookings Institution. To learn more about the issues discussed on At Brookings, visit our website at brookings.edu.